Two words show up again and again around business support, and most owners nod at them without ever really pinning them down. Outcomes, productivity. They sound like management jargon, the kind of thing you skim past, and that is exactly why they trip people up. Because when someone is deciding whether to back a project, these two words are often the whole game. They are asking, in effect, what will genuinely be better because of this, and can you show it? If you do not understand what those words mean to the person on the other side of the table, you will describe your project in terms of what you will buy and do when they are listening for what will change. So in the next few minutes, we are going to translate these two words into plain English and make them useful to you. One note before we begin. This channel is educational only. We are not a government agency. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by Go Business, Enterprise Singapore, or any government body, and nothing here is official advice. We name no schemes, no criteria, and no figures, because those change over time, so we will always point you back to the official source, gobusiness.gov.sg, to confirm what actually applies to your situation before you rely on any of it. Why assessors think in outcomes? Step into the shoes of someone deciding whether to support a project, and you quickly see why outcomes matter so much to them. Support is not given as a reward for effort or for spending money. It is given because something worthwhile is expected to result. So the question underneath the whole assessment is simple. What will be different in the real world because this happened, and is that difference worth encouraging? An assessor is not moved by how much you will spend or how hard you will work, because those are costs, not benefits. They are looking for the benefit, the change, the thing the money is really buying. Once you understand that they think in outcomes rather than in activity, you stop describing your project as a list of things you will do and start describing it as a change you will create, which is the language they are actually listening for. An outcome is the change that a project produces, the difference between how things were before and how they are after. It lives in the real world of your business, not in the project itself. Finishing the project is not an outcome. Buying the tool is not an outcome. Training the staff is not an outcome. Those are things you did. The outcome is what those things cost. The faster service, the higher quality, the new capability, the wider reach. A good way to find your outcome is to keep asking, and so what? After every statement about your project, until you arrive at something that genuinely matters to the business. We upgraded the system, and so what? The orders now go out in half the time, and so what? We can take on more customers without hiring. That last answer, the real change, is your outcome. Outputs are not outcomes. This is the distinction that catches almost everyone, because the two words look like cousins and behave like opposites. An output is what the project directly produces, the deliverable, the thing you can point to at the end. A new system installed, a course completed, a report written. An outcome is what that output changes about your business. Outputs are easy to describe because they are concrete and finished, which is exactly why owners lean on them. But a list of outputs answers the wrong question. Nobody supports a project so that a system exists. They support it so that the business is better because the system exists. Whenever you catch yourself describing what you will have at the end, push one step further and describe what you will be able to do or do better because you have it. The output is the bridge, the outcome is the far bank, and the far bank is the point. What productivity really means here? Productivity is the other word that gets nodded at and misunderstood. Stripped of jargon, productivity is simply the relationship between what you put in and what you get out. You become more productive when you get more out of the same input or the same out of less input. That is the whole idea. It is not about working harder or longer, which usually makes things worse. It is about getting more value from the hours, the people, and the resources you already have. This matters because a great deal of business support is aimed at productivity, at helping businesses do more with what they have, since that is what keeps an economy strong. So when you see the word, do not glaze over. Read it as a direct question about your project. Will this let my business produce more value from the same effort? And if so, how much, and how would you know? Doing more with the same, or the same with less. Productivity improvements come in two honest flavors, and it helps to know which one your project is. The first is doing more with the same, where your inputs stay roughly constant, but your output rises. The same team serving more customers, the same day producing more work. The second is doing the same with less, where your output holds steady, but the effort or cost to produce it falls. The same orders going out with fewer wasted hours. Both are real productivity gains, and a project usually leans towards one of them. Knowing which lets you describe your project cleanly, because you can point to exactly what stays fixed and what moves. Vague claims that something will improve productivity impress no one. A clear statement that the same three people will handle a rising volume without the quality slipping is specific, believable, and exactly the kind of change support is designed to encourage. Tie your project to a believable change. Once you understand outcomes and productivity, the job is to connect your specific project to a specific believable change. And believable is the operative word. It is tempting to reach for the largest, most impressive outcome you can imagine, but an outcome that sounds too good invites doubt rather than enthusiasm. A modest change you can genuinely explain the mechanism for beats a spectacular one you are clearly hoping for. So build the chain deliberately. This project produces this output, which enables this change in how we work, which produces this outcome for the business. Each link should feel natural to anyone who understands your business, with no leaps of faith required. If a link is missing or magical, the whole chain is suspect. A clear, honest, unspectacular chain of cause and effect is far more persuasive than a dramatic claim with a gap in the middle. Numbers you can actually stand behind. Outcomes become far stronger when you can put a number on them, but only if the number is one you could defend if someone asked you to explain it. There is a temptation to invent precise-sounding figures because they look rigorous, but a number you cannot back up is worse than an honest estimate because it collapses the moment it is examined. So reach for figures that come from your own reality, the time a task actually takes today, the volume you actually handle, the cost you actually carry. Then estimate the change conservatively, and be ready to say where the number came from. We deal in no figures here ourselves, and we are not suggesting any thresholds. We are simply saying that if you use numbers, they should be yours and they should be defensible. An honest, cautious number that you understand is worth more than an ambitious one you are guessing at. The before that makes an after mean something. Here is a step owners skip constantly, and it quietly undermines everything else. A change only means something against a starting point. So if you cannot describe the before, you cannot really claim the after. If you want to show that a task will be faster, you need to know how long it takes now. If you want to show you will serve more customers, you need to know how many you serve today. The before is your baseline, and it is worth capturing honestly before a project rather than reconstructing it hopefully afterwards. This is not just for anyone assessing your project, it is for you, because without a baseline, you will never truly know whether the project worked. Measure the before while it is still the present. It is the least glamorous part of the whole exercise and one of the most important, because an after with no before is just an assertion. Hadafani vanity outcomes. Some outcomes look impressive and mean very little, and it is worth learning to spot them in your own thinking. A vanity outcome is a change that sounds good but does not actually move your business. Activity dressed up as achievement. Being busier is not an outcome. Having more features is not an outcome. Looking more modern is not an outcome, unless it demonstrably leads to something real. The test is always the same. Does this change show up somewhere that matters, in what you can deliver, in what it costs you, in what your customers experience, in what your business can now do that it could not before? If a proud-sounding outcome cannot be traced to a real effect, it is decoration, and decoration persuades no thoughtful person. Chase the outcomes that would matter even if nobody were watching, because those are the ones that are genuinely worth supporting and genuinely worth doing. How to describe your outcome honestly. When it comes time to put your outcome into words, the best style is plain, specific, and honest. And it is the opposite of the inflated language people reach for when they are trying to impress. Say what is true. Name the change, name what it affects, and if you have a defensible number, include it. And if you do not, say what you expect and why, without pretending to a precision you do not have. Honesty here is not just ethical, it is strategic, because anyone experienced can feel the difference between a claim that is grounded and one that is inflated, and the grounded one earns trust. The same instinct that makes you want to oversell is the instinct to resist. A quiet, credible description of a real change does more work than a loud description of an imagined one, every single time. It will confirm the language on the official source. The words outcomes and productivity, and the way they are used and weighted, can differ from one kind of support to another, and the meanings and expectations shift over time. So treat everything here as a way of thinking rather than a set of definitions to quote. And go to gobusiness.gov.sg to see how these ideas are actually framed for whatever you are considering. Read the official guidance for what a given form of support is really looking for, in its own words, and let that refine the plain understanding you have built here. We deliberately give you no criteria and no figures because those are precisely the things that change, and the official source is the only place to confirm them for your situation today. Understanding the concepts lets you read that guidance intelligently, which is the whole reason we started with the concepts. A closing thought. So here is the translation to carry away. Assessors think in outcomes, not activity. So describe the change your project creates, not the things you will buy and do. An outcome is the difference between before and after, and it is not the same as an output, which is merely what the project produces. Productivity means getting more from the same or the same from less. So know which one your project delivers. Tie your project to a believable change to an honest chain of cause and effect. Use numbers only if you can stand behind them. Capture your before so your after means something, and avoid outcomes that are all vanity and no substance. Remember that everything here is general and educational. We are not a government agency, and we are not affiliated with or endorsed by anyone. And we name no criteria because they change. So confirm how these ideas actually apply on gobusiness.gov.sg. If this made two slippery words solid, subscribe for more plain English Singapore grant explainers, and we will keep turning jargon into something you can use.